and I'm now known as a social entrepreneur, international speaker. And I guess one of the things that most people are always pull a leg about, so to speak, is the fact that I've won so many awards. So I'm a multi-award winning social entrepreneur.
I was just about to say, you've got to add that a bit in there.
Yeah, it's I mean, lots of people talk about how many and how often, and I just posted a couple of weeks ago about a few awards that I'd won a few weeks ago, and somebody was joking about, oh, it's like 3 days since you last posted, and literally an hour later I got informed about another one which hasn't been made public yet. It's still embargoed at this stage, but it's great to get the recognition, and it's not about me. It really is about my team at Burnshaw. You know, I'm privileged that I'm in a position where I have a great team around me who really transform the lives of other people, in particular children with special education needs and disability. And that has given us a profile and given, therefore, me a personal profile. And as a result of that, I'm privileged to be recognized and given these awards. But it's really about my team, and it's really about the children that the team support. It's what they go through, and it's about how they develop and change that is really being recognized. It's not just me. I'm just the figurehead, really.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but I think the beauty of the organization of the Burtonshaw Group is it's really, really cool about what you guys stand for. It is the whole idea about transforming lives, and the fact that you're, as you said, as much as you're getting the awards, it is about the team. It is about, you know, the kids, even, and even the young adults and everything. So I love what the Burtonshaw Group is about and what you guys do for these kids as well as young adults. And yeah, and I think when I got the chance to work with you, it was cool being able to research a couple of things, and even just I learned a few bits of sign and you know, and it was just cool just to re-educate myself on quite a bit as well, because there's a lot that we don't, as you know, we don't, as the outsiders, we don't get to see so much, and I think we take for granted our own lives and what we can actually, the abilities or the levels that we can actually reach. Do you know what I mean? So it's good to see people who are literally being inspired by others to know and be encouraged equally that they can do it themselves. That's what I love about it. But yeah.
Well, I guess within the organization, our approach is what can you do? What is your potential? Let's strive for that. Not about what you can't do. We don't really see any point in focusing on that. But what are people interested in? What do they want to do? What can they do? Let's focus on that. Let's try and this is not only the young people that we support who all have either autistic spectrum conditions, significant learning disability, or significant physical impairment, but it's not just them. I'm talking about the staff as well as the young people. You know, giving them all opportunities to grow, to develop, to explore their potential, because a lot of people don't even know what their potential is because the way society is and the restrictions that are put on so many people. And that could be because either class as a disabled person, or it could be gender, it could be their cultural or racial background. But so many people are feel that, you know, there's only so far they can go. I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that. I never have done. It's always about opening that up. You know, if there is such a thing as a glass ceiling, bloody well break it. You know, let people get through that, whether it's a glass ceiling, a glass wall, a glass box. Get out there, you know, explore your potentials. And that's about the young people that we work with, as well as the staff team. I want so many of them to just flourish and to see that life can be different given the right conditions, the right opportunity. And that's really what we're all about. So when we talk about transforming lives, it's the lives of the people we support, it's the lives of the people who work for us, it's the lives of our supply chain, it's the lives of our community, because we're a multi-million-pound business now in the northwest of England. We're one of the biggest employers and biggest businesses in the area. So we have a contribution to make to our community and society in that way. So it's about transforming all of those elements.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's important that you did say that, because all of those ways that you are transforming all of those elements, they are your values, you know, those are your brand values. They're what the Burtonshaw Group is about. And I think it's so key and important to be able to relay that information, and so that other people can understand it, you know? And unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses out there. The average business owner does not do that, you know? And equally, it shows when they don't do that, because they don't show up in a different, they show up in a different kind of a way. They show, I guess, less heart, a bit more down, not downtrodden, that's the wrong word, but they just show up, as opposed to they show up. Do you know what I mean? They show up with proudness. They don't do that, unfortunately. But when you start using your values and understanding what it is that you're about even more so, you get to talk about it with a hell of a lot more passion, which is what I always see you guys do. And especially you do. So yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's good. That's good. So obviously you know about branding. Running a multi-million-pound business or being part of that, there's a hell of a lot that you would have picked up along the way about branding. So what benefits have you experienced from the results of understanding your brand?
I think it's easier to start by talking about when the brand and the image doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because basically you want it to be recognized for what it does and what it achieves. And when people hear your company name or see your image or your logo, you want people to recognize what that stands for. And I think prior to the logo and the brand that you created for us, we had a number of iterations in the past that really didn't quite hit the mark. Elements of it did, but it didn't always come together in the way that I wanted to. It might have shown some of our values or some of our mission elements, or it just never felt complete. And when you have a brand or a logo that just doesn't feel complete, one, it doesn't inspire people internally. People don't want to promote it. But also if you're then engaging with others, whether that's your end customer, or your end user of a service, or the purchasers of those services, if that might be different, other organizations, other businesses, community leaders, whatever it is, depending on what sector you're in, if they don't recognize your name and your brand and understand what you're about, it's always going to be an uphill battle.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And I can guarantee you that uphill battle that we had at Burton Shaw lasted quite a few years, because we just didn't have the right image, the right logo, it just didn't work. And it literally felt like climbing a high mountain. And yet when we got the new brand and logo that you created, it almost felt like we reached the summit of that mountain. We were able to kind of go over the top and just let it free flow down. People could then see it, tune into it, understand it. And it made the name and the logo more visible. And because it made it more visible, we were able to then link that to our social media platforms and really relaunch them. And the engagement that we're getting now, excuse me, through our social media platforms and our YouTube channel, all of those things has risen dramatically. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's in the hundreds percentage of increase in engagement. And I think that's all on the back of having a logo and an image and a brand that we feel resonates with us, that means something to us, that we want to share with other people and that they can tune into. I don't know if people watching or listening to this have seen the Burton Shaw logo and brand that you created for us, but one of the things that strikes me really is that there are 4 key elements to it for me. And those 4 key elements are encapsulated in what you've created. And I don't know if, when we were talking about at the time about you creating it, I don't know if that's what you set out to do deliberately, but it's absolutely what comes across to me. So if anyone cares to look at the Burton Shaw Group and look at the logo, what you did was...
I'll share it in your group as well. So when I post this, I'll share it so people...
Yeah, that would be good, because I can waffle on here and it won't make any sense unless people say it.
No, keep talking about it, keep describing it. So
yeah, but if you look at it, one of the things that you'll see is to the left of the company name, you'll see a B, B for Burton Shaw, but the B has been what you did with it was you created it into a kind of heart-shaped. You can still see it's a bee, but you can clearly see it's a heart. And I think that that stands for the first thing that Burton Shaw is all about, and that's compassion. Compassion for each other as workers and as a team, but more importantly, compassion for all of the young people that we support, whether they have autistic spectrum conditions, significant physical impairment, severe learning disability, whatever it may be. Is about having compassion for them. And I think that just having that, the bee making it look like a heart, for me, it just says very much we're about compassion, compassion for others. And I think the other thing that you did with it is that each part of the Burton Shaw Group, each part of the business has a different color that represents it. And you've incorporated all of the colors into that little bee-shaped heart, if you like. And there's two things for me that that come across from that. You know, there's a lot of colors there, and they're not the colors of the rainbow. And obviously, like, you know, you and I have those conversations about people on the autistic spectrum, or sometimes people with learning disability, can be triggered by certain colors, particularly bright primary colors, and red in particular. So we had to avoid those kind of colors. So it's more pastel colors. So it's definitely not the colors of the rainbow, but it kind of looks a little bit like a rainbow. And we all know these days that a rainbow is kind of, if you like, the symbol of equality and diversity. And I think they're two of our really strong values. Equality in the sense that we don't believe people should have limitations. They may have a learning disability, a physical impairment, they may have an autistic spectrum condition, but they shouldn't be limited. They should be given the same opportunities to grow, to develop, to explore, to see what they want to do in life, and what they, you know, where they want to take their own life, to whatever level they want to take it, and, you know, whatever level of ability they have. I don't think anything should stop that. And I think, you know, that almost rainbow effect, I think, gives a very strong message about equality. And, you know, I remember many years ago, and I can't remember, Tanya, if I've told you this story before, but we had one young man who was brought to one of our services, one of our schools, a special education needs school. He was brought by 5 or 6 adults who were carrying him. He was kind of face down to the ground. He was being carried by these big burly men. They brought him into a room and they said, he's absolutely unmanageable. It's going to take, you know, 6 men to effectively contain this young man at all times. And within a number of weeks, we had him on a course learning how to use a chainsaw to sculpt. So he now makes a living from chainsaw sculpture in wood. So for me, that whole thing about he was limited before by how people saw him. They saw his behavior first, not the person. They reacted to his behavior, not the person. We wanted to see, what's he capable of, what's he interested in, and certainly we're not prepared to have 6 men effectively acting as prison wardens. So that was about, you know, freeing him from those constraints and giving him the same kind of opportunities that anyone else in society would expect. But I also think that it talks about diversity too. You know, those colors of the rainbow reflect that diversity, the spectrum of life, so to speak, whether it's the spectrum of life from a point of view of intellectual ability or from people's cultural or ethnic backgrounds. For me, it reflects all of that. It's all of life is here, so to speak. And within the organization, we support young people with varying degrees of physical impairment, varying degrees of intellectual ability or impairment. But also within our staff team, you know, we have people from literally all over the world working for us. We have a huge number of staff who either they or their families originate from Africa or Asia. We've within the African staff who work for us, for example, the last time we tried to work it out, there was something like 155 different African languages spoken within the organization. I don't mean we all speak those languages, but what I mean is there are people within the organization that can speak those languages. And I think that's just, it's fascinating that this organization that, you know, when I took it over, I didn't create Burton Shaw. I took it over in 2006, and it was technically bankrupt at the time when I took it on. It was a very small company, and now it's a multi-million-pound business, as I said, and you know we employ hundreds of people. But being able to create jobs for people from all over the world and create opportunities for people who may face barriers elsewhere, they won't face those barriers at Burton Shaw. If they've got the right aptitude and they're interested in the work, there will not be any barriers to stop them either getting into the company or progressing within the company, and we create those opportunities. And we're really proud that we're one of the most diverse workforces in the UK, and we know that we are. I suppose if I put it in terms of statistics, something like 60% of our workforce is non-Indigenous or non-white English.
Yeah.
Where you're
you represent the world, you know.
We really do. And one of the things that I find very amusing is that for some reason or other, lots of Nigerian people work for us. It's almost like we have a little Nigerian community within the business. So I think those kind of the kind of heart shape representing compassion, but then the colors that are incorporated representing equality and diversity really are about what Burton Shaw stands for. And of course, the last main value, if you like, and it's clearly stated on the tagline: transformation, transforming lives. We are absolutely about transforming lives, whether that's something small with a young person on a given day, or whether it's about transforming our community, helping raise awareness of autism or learning disability or whatever it might be. It is absolutely about transforming the lives of everybody that the company comes into contact with.
It really is. And I love the way you describe that, because that's exactly it. And a lot, and especially within the shape of the bee and, you know, the movement of the heart, it is literally for me, it is a movement. You know what I mean? It's all about the fact that you're all going together is helping for that transformation to happen, you know?
Yeah.
So I love that. And then equally, just having the solid green color on the background, it's having that solid foundation, you know, to be able to lean on and to be able to push you or elevate yourself off of.
Do you know what, though, Tanya? We sometimes forget about that green circle in the background, which absolutely is about the solid foundation, and that is the traditional color of the company. The company's been around much longer than I've had it, but it's almost something we take for granted now. In the first few years of the company, it wasn't stable. As I said earlier, it was technically bankrupt when I took it over. And for the first 6 years, it lost money every year. And there were many times during those 6 years, I was on the point of, you know, should I stop? Should I give up? But I'm just not that kind of person. I don't kind of give up. I don't stop. And I eventually believed that if I kept working consistently and doing what I was doing and supporting and inspiring others, eventually it would come good. But it took 6 or 7 years before we went from loss making to profit making. And of course, then once we hit a profit making stage, since then it's kind of scaled up sort of fairly rapidly. So we no longer have to worry about the stability or the basis of the organization. It's there, it's solid. We have got a good basis. The company is stable. We haven't even really negatively been affected by the pandemic. You know, we've got secure income streams with diverse income streams. We've got a secure and solid customer base, if you like. And I think that green that's there, we kind of forget that that's to represent the stability of the company, but it absolutely is there. And I don't think we should take it for granted. But even as I was talking, I kind of forgot about it because it's just...
Because you concentrate on the things that stand out to you the most, don't we? And that's just life. That's just what we do. Anything that's shouting at that little bit louder, of course, we naturally, that's where our eye focuses in on. But then we can't forget about, as you just said, we can't forget about what's actually in the background. That's equally as important as well. But, you know, I designed it in the way that it's there, and it is obviously to be seen, but it's not the only thing that's to be seen. Does that make sense? There's
another way to look at it, though, because it's behind the bee, but it creates a really strong contrast, and therefore it makes the bee stand out more strongly.
Yes, yeah.
So for me, the things that I talked about, the compassion, the equality, the diversity, it's almost like saying, here you go, it's front and center.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes them
Not
stand out more,
hiding.
makes them pop more, if you want to put it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
And the solid base, if you like, of the company, the foundation of it's in the background, as it should be, because we should be concentrating and focusing on the people and the lives that we're changing.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's the main thing. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad that you sort of touched base on the idea of, you know, the fact that the last 18 months they haven't quite affected you guys in such of a way compared to, you know, in comparison to other businesses and so forth. But have you noticed any significant changes or any slight little tweaks that you guys have had to make in order to be able to adapt to the new changes?
Yeah, there was a lot of things.
The new normal, let's say that.
A lot of things that we needed to do. But when I said it hasn't affected us, really from a business or financial perspective, clearly it's affected the staff and all of the young people from an emotional and psychological perspective. And everybody's had to go through this very challenging time together and deal with it, you know, whatever way they could that was best for them. And it has had an impact on some people, on their personal lives emotionally. But our income streams didn't change because our services are classed as essential services. So when the government talked about all schools closing, most people forgot about the little bit at the end that the Prime Minister mentioned was, but provision will continue for children with special education needs and disability. Well, that's 100% of the children that we support. So therefore, we had to remain open. Our two schools and our college had to remain open all the way through the pandemic, which means we had to ask our teaching staff and our learning support assistants to come into work every day during the pandemic. And we needed to keep the schools and the college open. And during what most people refer to as the first lockdown, the number of children and young people coming in dropped dramatically to less than half. But because the service was one that they were still entitled to and we had to maintain it, our income streams didn't drop. So we still got paid. So we were able to move some money around because we needed to pay additional costs for agency staff, because certainly in the first 12 months of the pandemic, we had lots of staff who were having to self-isolate, take time off work. And when you run a service like ours, not so much the education services, because they're day-to-day, if you like, and if we needed to close a class, or even if we had to close a school, we could have done, but we didn't. We didn't have to get to that stage. But our care services operate 24 hours a day. And if you think about trying to support a group of children or young adults in a care service, is 24 hours a day, when maybe half the team have to isolate. And at the beginning, we had to make emergency plans for, you know, how we might cope if we were affected badly, and lots of staff were having to take time off. And so many staff volunteered to come in and live in if need be. So we were buying things like toiletry kits, we were buying camp beds, we were buying sleeping bags. We just didn't know how it was going to affect us initially. But the staff team were absolutely incredible. You know, almost all of them said, it doesn't matter, the children come first. If I have to be away from, excuse me, my family for a few weeks or a few months to make sure the children are safe, that's what I'll do. And that was so heartwarming for me and other members of my senior management team. But we had to buy all of those things. And of course, at the beginning of the pandemic, we also had to buy lots of PPE, you know, the protective equipment.
Trying to running short.
Find it anywhere.
Oh my gosh,
Actually, things like the hand sanitizers. Another person in our network who runs the Karama Fragrances was able to turn one of his suppliers, I think one of his factories, and I'm not sure where it's based, Turkey.
He had his he had a store based in Westfield, didn't he? Not Stratford, but Shepherd's Bush, Westfield. I remember that. But unfortunately, I think he had to close down that store. But he has other, you know, outlets and whatnot.
There are outlets, and kind of started doing stuff online. But we had a conversation about, would he be able to change his production line from fragrances to hand sanitizers? And he was able to do it really quickly. And if I'd not been part of this network, I wouldn't have had the contact with Rooney, and I wouldn't have been able to have that conversation. And he was able to turn that around really quickly and get me I can't remember how many units we ordered, hundreds of this units, the hand sanitizer. But if I hadn't been able to get it from him, I wouldn't have been able to get it from anywhere else. And there were other people that helped us out with coming together and forming like little collaboratives to buy protective equipment from other places. But then there was also the issue about, are we supposed to wear it or are we not? Because the government guidance all the way through has been
like this,
to say the least. So one day we were being told to wear protective equipment, but then we were told, but not if the child has learning disability. And then you were told to do it in schools, but not in the care services. And then we were told to do care services, but not in school. And it was like every day we were having to issue new guidance to staff. So day in, day out, myself and my senior team were having to pick up the briefings from government, which is in very bureaucratic language, read it, try and interpret it, and then distill it for our staff teams in a way that made sense to them. And most of the time it didn't really make sense to us. So we had all of those challenges going on. The other thing that we had to do, of course, was follow the government's diktat about those staff who could work from home should. And that meant all of our head office staff, our kind of support staff, our corporate staff, admin staff, including me and my senior team, we had to work from home. Now, that wasn't something I was comfortable with, because what it looked like to our frontline staff, our support workers, our care workers, our teachers, our learning support assistants, it looked like we were saying to them, yes, you go into work and face the risks. I'm going to stay at home and stay safe. And that wasn't what it was about. We were following government guidance. And I don't think anyone in government considered what that might be like in companies like ours, where people like me and my senior team had to then stay at home, but we were asking all of our frontline staff to go in. And that was not a comfortable feeling. And obviously, over time, staff understood why we were doing it. And eventually, most of them were supportive that we were following government guidelines. But I'm telling you, that is one that I did not like and did not feel comfortable supporting. But another thing that we had to prepare for, and this is probably not something that people had considered or many people would want to think about, but we support a significant number of children and young people, many of whom have got suppressed immune systems because of their various conditions. And prior to the first lockdown, so probably from around mid-February, we were being given indications of the impact that this virus might have on children. Subsequently, it's turned out that that information at the beginning was wrong, and that children aren't as affected as they might have been and are by other viruses. But we were told you need to prepare for fatalities. So I was having to prepare my staff team. And when I talked to them about the numbers, and I talked to my senior management team about the numbers of children that we potentially could expect to die as a result of this virus, there was just a complete silence in the room. People were stunned. They didn't know what to do. And they then had to go and pass that message on to other staff and prepare them. And we had to do all of that work, and that has an emotional impact on people.
Of course,
But thankfully, not one child died, and none were seriously ill. Quite a few children tested positive at some point during the last 18, 20 months, but none of them were really ill. Similarly with the staff team, quite a few staff over the period of the pandemic have tested positive, some with no symptoms, some with mild, some with maybe a little bit more, but only 2 members of staff were hospitalized, but thankfully they recovered. But each time a member of staff tested positive and we had to isolate people and send people home, it puts the pressure on everyone else. So the main impact that the whole thing has had is that the staff team now, whilst they've been absolutely wonderful and gone way above and beyond anything you might have expected, to the point where times it brought me to tears, and that is not like something I would say lightly, and not something that would normally happen to me. I'm fairly stoic and strong emotional person, but their reaction and their responses during the pandemic brought me to tears. But now they're all shattered. They are shattered.
I can imagine, because it's been a continuous, rather than they get to go home and then come back. But no, it's been a sort of continuous kind of emotion. So it's just come to a head. Yeah.
You know, they might have done a 24-hour stint, you know, a late shift, maybe gone home, got a few hours sleep, come in the next day. They might have just got home again. and then they get called because there's been somebody told to isolate, or a whole team told to isolate, and we need to bring more staff back in. And this, when it started last March, we were all kind of thinking, yeah, it'll be over in 3 or 4 months, summer will be fine. And the longer it dragged on, you could just see the more impact that it was having on people's energy levels.
Yeah.
And now, staff are carrying on and still doing a really good job, stepping up and doing whatever they need to do. But you can see that they're exhausted. They need a break. And I would absolutely love to be able to say to everybody, you can have a month off. But our services operate 24 hours a day.
I was just about to say, unfortunately, it doesn't allow for that.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
I think you touched base on such a key point, the whole emotional side of things, having the right to be able to continue with a positive mindset, all in spite of what is going on, is such a key thing to be able to tap into all the time. Do you know what I mean? And having the facilities or the people, the resources to be able to reach out to, when you need the help yourself, especially to make sure you stay on that positive mind frame for the kids and for the young adults as well that you guys help. I'd imagine, yeah, that's a lot.
You know what, Tanya, though, it led to some learning curves for me as well.
Yeah.
Prior to the pandemic, I was often in my office at work for very long days, and felt that I needed to be there, and felt that there was things I needed to do. A lot of that's changed very dramatically. But one of the things that I used to think about was I wanted to see staff. I wanted to be able to kind of observe them, not from a kind of like an overlord, micromanager. I just wanted to see how it felt and know that it felt good for the children that we support. Because if I walked in to a service and I didn't get a positive vibe, I would know that the children wouldn't be getting it either. So that was the thing. And then when the pandemic started, I kind of thought, well, what are we going to do to keep in touch with people? And we started issuing kind of daily briefings, but as short as possible, so that people didn't have to read a load of rubbish, but just key information that they needed, but try to keep it positive. Try to disseminate the government guidance, but change from the government gobbledygook to simple English that everybody can understand. But also then, and this was the big thing for me, starting to use things like this Zoom and Microsoft Teams. And you know me, before the pandemic, I didn't do stuff like this.
Where are we meeting and why?
If it wasn't a physical meeting, I wasn't there. So we had to start thinking about setting up. We didn't even have Microsoft Teams within the organization before. I'd done a couple of Zoom calls on a personal level, stuff outside Burtonshaw, but I'd never used it in Burtonshaw. Never used any other kind of platform. But we were able to. Some of our supporters actually are involved with Telefonica O2, and we're able to help us get Microsoft Teams set up really quickly. And we then had regular keeping in touch sessions with staff teams. And normally it would be a team manager who met with the team, or it would be maybe a senior manager every couple of months just to touch base, see how things are going. But we made the decision that I needed to be more visible to all staff. So in the early days of the pandemic, I was meeting with teams on a video platform once a week, so that they could, if they needed to vent or rant, so that they knew it was me that was hearing it, but also if they had questions, that they were hearing it from me, hearing the answer from me. And even if they didn't like the answer because it was government guidance and it didn't make sense to them, whatever, I tried to explain it in the best way that I can. And I was doing that for months in the early stages of the pandemic, until the staff eventually told me quite nicely, right, we're fed up talking to you now, go away, stop this.
Oh my god! But then I see why you did it though, because you're then rebuilding that rapport with your staff again. They didn't get to see you for however many years or months or whatever beforehand, and now they get to, oh, it's David again. Yeah, how's he doing? You know what I mean? So it's building up that rapport, and again, I think you need to be able to inject yourself back into work in that respect, to see all the different angles, as you rightly said.
Well, in case you haven't noticed, I like to talk, and I'm a people person. And at the start of the pandemic, I thought, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to talk to people? How am I going to interact with people? And it's not as good on a screen, but it's better than not doing it at all. And thankfully, we were able to set it up very quickly. So I think within 6 months 6 weeks of having to work at home, I was then able to engage with staff on Microsoft Office Teams and other video platforms. And we actually moved a lot of the kind of functions, the HR functions of the business to, so HR meetings and even all of our interviews, we moved all of those to video platforms. So we've been forced as a company to make much greater use of technology, which is, you know, for me and for other people like me who avoided it in the past, it's been a learning curve. But people in the organization, this person won't mind me saying this, but Karen Shepherd, she's one of the senior managers. She's head of service for care services. She, prior to the pandemic, was not even confident about turning a computer on or using a mouse. Now she's on Zooms all day.
She's like a technical whiz now. It's like, yeah, what do you want? No problem. I bet she could have sorted out my issue for me.
Who knows? Who knows? But she doesn't have she's not reserved about it at all. That's not the right word. She's not hesitant about it anymore. She just gets on and does it. And, you know, we've actually been able to make a lot of things more efficient. And we'll continue doing a lot of things in this way. We'll not go back to some of the older ways of working because it's more efficient for the company this way. So there's been a lot of that going on as well. I can't remember what you asked me anymore. I've just been talking so much. I have no idea what you asked
It's all still relevant, don't worry. But no, I think you're right. I think a lot of businesses have had to rethink a few things. So I think it's typical as a business owner or whatever you're doing when you're continuing with your business, we get into this routine of this is how it should work and whatnot. But then we get the spanner in the works of a crazy pandemic like this, you know, that then throws us off our mark a little bit. And then we're like, right, now what? What do we need to do? Yeah. So it's great that you've got these things in place now. And do you know what? No, we don't need to go back to the old way of working. We can now continue in this new kind of direction that, as you rightly said, is now being a hell of a lot more efficient, you know? And I think the pandemic, it's brought out a hell of a lot more technically aware people who weren't necessarily technically aware, and especially when it comes to Zoom and especially when it comes to Google Teams and all that kind of stuff, you know. And it's opened up my eyes on a few things.
I couldn't claim to be technically aware now. What I can claim is I use technology a lot more than I used to. We have a great IT service. Our IT service is outsourced, and basically my system at home and my senior managers, we're all linked to the company system. Yeah. So if we do have an issue, we can literally send a text to our IT support team and they can remotely log into our systems, whether it's our laptops or our computers at home, and they can literally fix it within seconds. Yeah. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was trying to have a Teams meeting and I couldn't get Teams to work yesterday, which I'm sure you're aware, it's very similar to Zoom, like this. But I couldn't get it to work. Sent a text to one of the guys in the IT team, and I said, "This isn't doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be in a meeting." You know? So basically, I carried on with something. I've got double screens and everything. So I was working on one screen. He logged in. He basically logged me out of Teams and logged me back in, and it was fine.
And that was it.
And I didn't even know that. I mean, I just literally click on the icon. I didn't even know that there was a login and log out on it. I just thought it was there. When you clicked on it, that was you logging in. I didn't realize that I had a password. Literally, I sent him a text. 2-3 minutes later, he responded, and within 5 seconds, he resolved the issue. So we've got, you know, that kind of backup. And without that, there would have been times I would have felt uncomfortable using the technology. But we're not all going to be going back to the office full time, and we're not all going to be. I certainly felt that prior to the pandemic that I needed to be there, I needed to be visible, I needed to spend a lot of time in it. But at the same time, I was saying to my senior management team, I want to extract myself from the company. I want to spend less time in the company. But I was behaving in a way that said the opposite.
Yeah.
I was actually making it more, making it harder for me to extract myself from the company, because I was going in and being visible and being available and allowing people to come to me and ask me questions and stuff. And this is really, you know, shown me that I don't need to be, and actually shown me that I don't need to spend as much time on the business as I thought I did. And actually now, don't tell anybody, but a couple of hours a week is probably all I need to do. And I can do it as and when I want.
That's the levels a lot of us are trying to get to, David.
Honestly, I worked it out. I'm not going to tell you exactly in case anybody from the company listens to this.
Yeah.
It's only a few hours a week.
Yeah.
And the other thing about that for me is that for years I've wanted to spend longer times in sunnier countries. And just literally 2 days ago, I've been able to book an apartment in Spain for 5 months next summer. So I'm going to be there. And if I need to come back because I need to physically deliver some training, I might come back for a couple of days. So I'm going to treat it like before the pandemic, the way I used to travel to, say, London for a conference for a couple of days. I'm literally going to fly back, do what I need to do for a couple of days and go back to the apartment in Spain.
See, look at that. It'll probably take you the same amount of time as well.
Probably, yeah. And I would never, ever have been able to get to that stage had it not been for the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I know it's been really tough for a lot of people, but at Burtonshaw, most of us have learned new things about ourselves, learned things about technology, learned new ways of working that are more efficient for the company. The company's survived and done well and thrived. Actually, unlike many other companies, we've increased the size of our workforce during the pandemic. Over 100 new people and new members of staff.
That's brilliant. Yeah,
you know, so it's not been as tough for us as sadly it has been for lots of other people. So we're in a good position, really.
That's amazing stuff. So on a final note, what would your advice be to somebody who's still humming and hawing about, you know, making sure that they invest in their brand, and I'm talking not necessarily financially, but I'm talking about the time, the energy, putting the energy that you need to in order to be able to get your brand eventually to the levels that we want to grow it to?
It's really simple. If you want customers or other businesses to know who you are and what you do, you need a recognizable brand. And you need to be, as the business owner, the person that influences the designer to get them, to help them create the brand that represents you, your values, your mission, if you want to put it that way, your objectives. But if you don't invest that time, and if you don't put that effort in, don't complain when you say nobody knows who we are and nobody's coming to our website or nobody's coming to our social media platforms. If you don't bloody well put the time in and create a brand, how the hell can you expect anybody to know who you are? It's that simple.
It's that simple. You've got to put in the energy. As much as you want people to make the effort to come and find you, how about you make the effort to step up and show up, you know? Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. But thank you, David. That's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So as I said, obviously, where I wasn't able to stream it live to the group, I'm going to download this and then upload it to my Facebook group as well. But are you in the? I feel like you are in the group. If you're not,
I have absolutely no idea. But if you're uploading it to your group, make sure you use some filters. Make sure you make me look good. And
I will.
I've had no makeup artist on hand before we started.
No worries.
Listen, Tanya, I really appreciate the time you've taken today, but more importantly, the time that you took to understand Burtonshaw as a business, what we're about, what our values were. You know, the time that you took, for example, to understand why you couldn't use red in the logo, what the social model of disability was, what ordinary life principles were. So things that are not necessarily within your sector, your area of work. You took the time to understand them because they were important to us, and you delivered a brand logo, an image that works for us. And if you'd not taken that time, that wouldn't have happened. So it's not just about us investing the time, it's also about you, the designer. So publicly, I'd like to say thank you very much because it's been incredible.
Thank you, David. Thank you. And it's an important thing to be able to tap into businesses like yours and even understand what your businesses are about, because if I don't create an image or help you to develop on your brand that's suitable for your business, then it's not going to work at all. And the message that you're actually putting out to your audience is going to be so confusing, and they'll be like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? There's not going to be synergy. And we need that synergy in order to be able to produce something like what we were able to produce. So I'm pleased.
Do you know what though? Do you know how I knew it was going to work and how I knew quickly? You sent us 3 or 4 different options, and I shared that with a significant number of the management team just to say, what do you think? And literally within seconds, everyone had responded and chosen the one that we eventually went with. because for them it just was Bert and Shaw.
Look at that. Look at that. See, I love that.
Fabulous. It's great.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, I'm so pleased about that. And equally, I'm so pleased that you guys just really loved it and you embraced the whole process of it as well, you know? So sometimes, unfortunately, I do get some clients who you know, continuously fight back or whatever, but then we, you know, eventually come back to the same agreement, which is, no, this is what it should be because of these points. So I'm so pleased that you guys got it and understood, you know, the direction of it. So amazing stuff.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Oh, and how did the pens and the mugs and everything? They all worked out good? Because I didn't get to see it.
Wish I never ordered those mugs to cause so many arguments.
Oh, really?
Everybody wanted one.
Arguments in a good way.
Arguments in a good way. They're all over the business. Every location has some way. We sent some to every location, and everybody wanted more. So I don't know if I think we're probably fully out of stock. We'll probably have to reorder some of those. But the pencils and the notebooks. So what we do with the notebooks, I can't remember who. It's one of your network. You know, you sent the logo on, and then I don't know.
It was a supplier that I use.
So what we do now is basically all new staff get a notebook as they go to their first training session.
Oh, brilliant!
So which is just a really nice thing. So they get like a pencil, the notebook, and if there are any mugs, they get a mug. But,
they get to sip it and give it back.
Yeah, they're very popular.
Brilliant.